All right, again, welcome, welcome. Thank you for adding your fashion trends in the chat. Those are always a good giggle. Like, I love just visiting schools and seeing what the students are wearing these days. And I love it. I love it. So thanks for sharing those, y'all. We are going to get started today. We are probably going to run right up until a little bit past 5. Maybe we'll end a little bit earlier. So hang in there with us. Our learning targets are here on the slide. So today we will be moving into the next chapter of our Leaders of the Room text. I know we've sort of been loosely reading it together, just kind of focusing on some high interest areas. So I appreciate y'all just taking the time to dig into this resource in a way that best fits your needs. I know y'all are very busy right now, so I appreciate your engagement. But today we're specifically moving into looking at students using data. And we will be kind of thinking about maybe our own next steps or goals in creating or improving a data-informed culture in our classrooms. We're also going to have some time today to problem solve around some common challenges. I know y'all enjoy getting together and just kind of being thought partners. So we've built in some time for that today. We're also going to be looking at our ELA March updates. And as always, you'll have some time to ask questions if you have any. As I mentioned earlier, we'll be collaborating a bit today. So our norms of collaboration are here. Just kind of think through one or two that you focus on today. I've highlighted a couple of them just that drew my attention as we are talking about data and wanting to kind of problem solve today. I'd hope that we would just all be flexible and considering how we might put some ideas on the table to share with others. I've also included a note catcher for today. So if you all can go ahead and access that, it's included in the meeting schedule that I emailed out earlier today. It's linked right here in the slide deck. And I will also drop it in the chat. Y'all will need this note catcher to access resources and breakout rooms and all that good stuff. And I'm in that room again. That makes me get up and dance periodically. So you're welcome. All right, here we go. So to kind of prime our thinking and get us going, share a word or phrase from the quote below that is resonating with you. I'm going to ask you to flood the chat. So just take a minute to read it over and respond in the chat, and I'll cue you to hit send when you're ready, or when I'm ready. Take another 10 seconds or so to type it into your chat box. And flood the chat. Seeing quite a few engine for growth. Students are left out. Does anyone want to speak more to kind of why they maybe added that word or phrase, or what you immediately thought of when you read this quote? And y'all can just unmute. You know I'm relaxed.
I'll just go. I gave more than one. So I said equipped, analyze data, potential to improve learning, engine of growth, and engine of growth is centered. So I did all those because students are left out with it, but then we forget what the purpose of the data is. And so we all need to be equipped. So all those individuals, including the student, we all need to know how to analyze data. And then if it's centered and we all surround it, it makes just the whole picture for everyone to be able to use it.
So you're thinking about all the stakeholders that need to be involved and equipped, including students.
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing. Does anyone else want to add on to that, or just speak to what this quote said to them?
I'll share. I chose engine. What was it? Engine for growth, and I put that there because this year my PGP and what I've been working on is student feedback and student accountability and students reflecting on their own learning. And so I see, I wouldn't say I've gotten there. I'm moving in that direction. But I do see my students starting to use words like, I didn't use the strongest evidence in this. I had evidence, but it wasn't the strongest. I need to work on finding the strongest. So I'm seeing the kids starting to connect to their own reflections and their own learning goals. And I feel like that is, like I think of an engine like moving. So I do think that that's helping kids see where they are and how they can move forward.
Wow, Stacy, thanks for sharing. It sounds like you've made a lot of growth towards that PDP goal, and that your students are really internalizing their goals and the feedback that you're providing, and that's what we're working towards, student ownership of learning. So that's great, Stacy. Thanks for sharing. All right, y'all. So, so much of this is reflective. We want our students to be reflective. We want us to be reflective. And so there's a little bit of self-assessment activity that we'd like you to kind of participate in over the next few minutes. And this will just be your own reflection. So on pages 126 to 127 of the book, and I've also attached them in the next few slides, slides 6, 7, and 8, if you don't have your book with you. There are benchmarks that the authors provide to help us sort of assess or determine where we fall as with regards to using data with our students. So I'm just going to give you minutes to read over those benchmarks and on your own kind of figure out, like, this is probably where I fall. And then I'm going to have you go into a breakout room with a partner, and y'all are just going to kind of share a goal or a next step that you might have as it relates to creating or improving data culture in your classrooms. You don't have to share where you fall in that benchmark, like that's your own reflection. But we're just talking through some of our next steps. And this is something great to do with our students too. Stacy mentioned her students are able to kind of determine, where they may need some additional support or something they want to work and improve on. And then being able to talk to someone about that and verbalize it can really be leveraged to help us reach those goals. So I'm going to give you 5 minutes to look at those benchmarks, and then I will call us back in to do breakout rooms. Are there any questions I can answer? All right, I'm going to start the timer. Welcome back. Welcome back. Welcome back. So I'm so curious to hear if anyone's brave enough or willing to share. Would someone want to share maybe a next step or a goal that they talked about with their partner, or maybe you heard your partner say something amazing and want to highlight them? I'm all about that too.
Okay, well, Jill and I talked about next steps in our group where we both had concerns about trying to fit in the time with the students to have an opportunity to incorporate that task of getting them to analyze the data and the challenges, um, that we're experiencing, that we share with the fact that, sometimes the majority of the time, the lesson takes 2 days, to complete one lesson. And, after you explain it, it's 2 days. And we were just talking about ways, to incorporate the children in the process and still maintain the integrity of the curriculum and pacing.
Well, Raquel, thank you for just calling that out because it is a very, very common challenge, even if you didn't have a curriculum, right? It is a common challenge. And actually, later in today's session, we're going to do some problem solving around that challenge that you and Jill were talking about. And I'd also, I don't know if we have time, but I'd love to lean on Stacy and find out, okay, well, you're teaching the curriculum in your class and still able to have these conversations. I don't know, Stacy, if you feel comfortable speaking out, or maybe we can connect you with Raquel and Jill later, but I wonder how you've been able to, problem solve around that time, that challenge.
Do you want me to talk?
I mean, yes. I also know that we're going to have time for this later, so you can kind of give a preview of it maybe. And if you're interested in joining that room or just adding to that jam board later, that would be another great way to pick your brain.
I just think that, and this is just going to be really quick, but I think that the biggest thing is when you're looking at the lesson, you need to think about what is the key learning that has to happen. And sometimes you're going to have to make some decisions about like changing a protocol or changing something to a give one, get one, or maybe there's four things they need to do, but you're going to have them do two. So, you really just need to think about what is the overarching learning target for that lesson and focus on that instead of the lesson says to do this, 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 and this. And that, at least that's what I do. And I usually get a lesson in a day, and I've done 7th and 8th.
Thank you, Stacy. Yeah, and we can talk more about, how to, and I know we have different students in different circumstances. And so, we're just in different places. But I think that that's some good advice, just trying to figure out where in the day you can manipulate the timing of the lesson just a bit so that you can have or make time for, this addressing, having time for students to analyze data. And then there's probably other ways we can get creative about that. And we have someone here on the call that I'm going to introduce in a few minutes who I'm sure can speak to that. Dina, did you want to add anything before I move on?
Yeah, I'm so glad that Stacy shared that sometimes you just have to prioritize, and we try to speak the language of the EL lesson is not a script. It's not a one size fit all. So you're going to have to take that teacher manual or even the slides that we provided you guys with the teacher moves and make it fit for your kids. And so if you're making it fit for your kids, maybe it is just 1 or 2 targets that you're focusing on for the day and you're collecting data for that day. But you have that autonomy when we say this is yours to do what's best for your kiddos. What Stacy described and what Jennifer emphasizes is exactly what we're saying. So I think you guys hit it, Jennifer and Stacy. And, Rifkin said it, no one school's the same. So you're going to not all be in a position like Stacy to get through a lesson a day, but you do what's best for your kiddos and your goals for your PLT.
Mm-hmm.
Jennifer, can I say something about the intermediate slide? I just am wondering if other people are running into this issue.
Sure. I'm going to put it up. Mm-hmm.
So if you're looking at the intermediate slide, it kind of talks about like students are able to like set goals based on their growth and what standards they're doing. And, EL makes that really clear that we are telling them like, hey, these are the learning targets for this lesson today. And this is what we're going to be doing. And even like at the top of a lot of our assignments, we'll put like, when this assignment is over, when this lesson is over, like, here's what we hope that you're either understanding, grasping, or working towards, like some type of growth, which all of that I think is so wonderful. And it's good for us to track and good for the kids to track. But I feel like the language that the kids speak is number grades. And so I think they're always thinking like, I understand this because I have this grade, this number in the grade book. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so I think sometimes the hurdle that I have trouble getting over, and I think the kids have trouble getting over that too, is like we want to speak standards-based grading language to them because we want them to be able to have like a positive mindset around their own learning, like I feel like I can track this, I'm growing, and I'm proud of what I'm doing, and I'm taking responsibility for the standards that I'm learning. But like, they're not doing that when we are required to enter number grades. Do you know what I'm saying? And it's not like on you guys, like it's the county that we have to do number grades in Power School.
Right. So, gosh, I have so much to
I know. I could talk about this one topic all day long.
I mean, it's a big deal, and I think a lot of that is why why we structured the meeting we did today, because there are a lot of challenges, and you guys are calling them out, and one of them has to do with kind of the culture that you're discussing, like, because at the end of the day, we can still have grades and grade books, but you can still, or how might we develop the type of culture where students are, yes, they're paying attention to grades, but they're more focused on them and their goals, and they're seeing how that translates to the grades later. But that's,
Right.
you know what I mean? And that's certainly a challenge. And Stephanie, I do see your hand up. I just wanted to invite Spencer Ziegler, who's here as sort of our guest speaker for today. I was just wondering, Spencer, if you had any thoughts that you'd like to share on what Christine just shared.
Yeah, a couple things come to mind. In terms of finding the time, my head actually went to a future chapter in this book that y'all are reading that stresses the benefits of student-led conferences and celebrations of learning, because I think that gives authentic times and places for students to do a lot of this reflection and analysis in a spot that's not just tied to the ELA classroom. So then finding time isn't just an ELA issue, it's a team and school issue, and that might free you up some of when the schedule's weird because you have some assembly or something, you got those pockets of time, you might be able to, as a team, then designate that for some of these skills. My other thought with just that is, the other point is, the descriptive feedback and then evaluative feedback having those grades, those numbers, and just a lot of research showing that whenever there's evaluative feedback, the brain's not going to go to the growth and to the descriptive feedback. You're going to ignore that and you're going to jump to the label because that's tied to your identity. So as much as possible, doing some of these things at a time in which there isn't the distraction of the evaluative feedback tied to there, you're probably going to get a little bit more of a return from your students there.
Thank you, Spencer. Stephanie? You're muted.
I was just going to ask if other teachers have had this happen. I mean, I teach 7th grade, and a lot of kids come to 7th grade, and they still don't understand what the grades are. Like, they don't understand a grading scale, and they'll say, "Is 85 good? Is that passing? Am I failing?" Like, they don't have even the concept of the 89, 100%. They don't understand that scale. And they don't understand the standard-based scale from elementary school. So they don't understand the grading scale. And it's hard to explain it to them because you're talking about two different things. Standards-based grading is not grades percentages. And I have a lot of kids that don't understand that they're failing. and it's one of the things in the book was about being honest with the kids and not trying to knock them down confident wise and having that safe culture of the classroom. So I've just found that it's a struggle sometimes because they don't understand.
Yeah, Stephanie, I remember encountering that too. And, you're speaking to just trying to there's like a language that needs to be developed almost. And some kids are going to come in with that language, some maybe don't. And so thinking through as a classroom teacher, as a leader in your building, what kinds of discussions can we have around just that language? And y'all, I want to have some time to break into smaller groups because I think that there's some rich conversations that need to be had about these challenges. And so Stephanie, just kind of hold on to that a little bit. You might be able to have that conversation in the next segment. So y'all, I introduced Spencer and he spoke, and I just want to also just call him out. Like, he is sort of this like data amazing, like celebrity, I think. He hosts the Data Lit podcast, and if you haven't listened to them, just listen to it on the way to school or after school on your drive home. There's some really, really fascinating interviews that he's had on the podcast, and I'm not trying to sell it, but I'm also trying to sell it. It's really good. But welcome, Spencer. I'm so glad to have you here. In the next segment of today's meeting, I'm going to have you all choose a room based on a common challenge, and a lot of them have been surfaced in the last few minutes. And if you're interested in kind of learning more from Spencer, he'll be in room 3. Dina will be in room 1, and I'll be in room 2. But we took the challenges that are described on pages 127 and through 130 at the end of the chapter, and we kind of lumped them into some general themes. So if you're feeling like, you don't have enough time for this, or you're considering like the resources that you have as a challenge, then I would go to room 1. Room 2 is data collection. So, what types of evidence are we collecting? There's right and wrong evidence, of student learning, and kind of problem solving around that. And then data culture and community is a lot of what we've just been talking about. Will be in room 3. And so the protocol I have in place here is, once you get into your room, your facilitators will meet you. But once you're there, we have a Jamboard with a couple 4 different frames. Frames 2 through 4 represent each of these rooms. So on the first frame, you have the instructions, and we're going to do a little bit of an idea harvest, and it's exactly what it sounds like. You're going to just kind of brainstorm some ideas or solutions around these challenges that are on the slide. And then you'll have some time to talk through them with your colleagues, and you'll be able to kind of harvest those ideas if you feel that the opportunity is ripe. So if you can, take a minute to determine which room you want to go into, and then you can access it on the note catcher. We will need to be back here at 4:35, facilitators. If you can just all be back by 4:35, and I know, Spencer, you're going to have to head out at that time anyway. So are there any questions I can answer before I let y'all choose the room you want to go to? So you can kind of just like mute and don't close out this Google Meet, just kind of leave it open in another tab, and then go to your next Google Meet. Alrighty, I will see y'all in there. I'd like to welcome you back. Dina, Spencer, do we have everyone back? Thank you, Spencer.
Thanks for having me. Take care, everyone.
Hey, Rifkin, we're here.
Okay. I know that wasn't nearly enough time, y'all. It really wasn't. And you'll have some time to continue these conversations with your grade level PLTs. So please continue to add to the Jamboard, to have these discussions, to be thinking about what, conversations to have with leadership at your school. we're only covering these 3 chapters for this school year. We didn't want to do information overload or do too much this year. But we're going to continue working through Leaders of Their Own Learning next year. But there's a couple chapters that Spencer alluded to that will help with schools making kind of larger decisions that will impact you in your classroom and having the time and structures in place for this to be really successful. So thank you. Let's see, what time do we have here? Are there any participants who wouldn't mind sharing out 1 or 2 things that resonated with you as you met with your group, or an idea that you were able to capture that you want to try in the next school year or in this school year?
So Jennifer, I did share for my group, I'll be our spokesperson. So we know that resources and time has just been a challenge these last 2 years alone, but even more so this year due to the challenge of just teacher coverage. So while there is time that's built in our schedules, we have flex time to do like intervention opportunities and SEL opportunities. Sometimes those times are taken away from us too. So we went into our little brainstorming thinking, if this was a perfect world, or if we could go back 2 years pre-COVID when that time was protected, what are some things that we would have had in place to tackle those challenges of being overwhelmed with resources or not having enough resources or just not having the time? So we went back to structures that are already built in, which will be flex time and how we can use that differently. Having data lunch dates in the cafeteria. So we can just use that cafe time where we're on duty anyway to pull aside some kids and have some data conversations about our learning and their targets that they reach or did not reach for the day. And then just one more I want to highlight is just a solid PLT time. So having that PLT time protected, it would be great if all school administrators could build in a work day where teachers could just plan and have data conversations for 3 uninterrupted hours. And so we're hoping for birthdays every day next year where we have protected time to do these things. So hopefully we'll get back there and there's no such thing as coverage. So put on our ruby slippers and let's go back 2 years ago.
I love that y'all were thinking about, what's in your control and what might not be, and kind of problem solving around both scenarios, and hoping that things will be in a better position to have protected time next year, because let's face it, y'all, our time has not been, especially your time, has not been protected this year. Thank you for sharing, Dina. Does anyone from Spencer's group want to share out the data collection and community? I know he had to step out, take his daughter to dance class.
Hey, Jennifer, I'll go ahead and go.
Thanks, Megan.
Spencer talked about when you're talking about data with your members of like your PLT or your department or your administrators, that when you first start having data conversations, to focus on something small instead of the big, huge, spreadsheet you're handed at the beginning of the year that has a whole bunch of data on it. Maybe focus on one of those data points and start small, and have clear expectations about where you want to go with your conversation, instead of biting taking several bites out of the apple. You're just taking one. And so just starting small and then and going large, especially in this culture that we have now where everybody's burnt out and teachers are quitting, and there's what it's called COVID life. So just instead of overwhelming people, just have these conversations based on one small data topic and then moving forward from there.
Thank you, Megan, for sharing. I think that that's helpful for, the student as well, right? I mean, think about when you set goals for yourself, and that's why we have SMART goals and all of that. You want to make it achievable. And I think starting small is just a great suggestion. And, I think that overlaps into kind of what my room was talking about, just thinking through all the different students we serve and meeting them at whatever level they are at is a challenge. And, while these are 3 separate rooms, they're all pretty much interconnected. So I don't know if there's someone from my group that would like to share out something resonating with y'all. We didn't talk about who would share out, sorry.
I'm trying to think back about how many we discussed so many things.
Yeah, thanks, Stephanie.
I'm just kind of drawing a blank. We just trying basically to find a way to meet the needs of all students and finding ways to make their learning goal just as important as someone on grade level, and finding resources to provide the same support for someone who is on a different grade level versus someone who's below grade level. And not all schools have the same resources.
Yeah, we talked about that as well. Just, the different resources at different schools will definitely impact your data collection. So thank you for sharing, Stephanie. Y'all, I know you didn't get to go to all the rooms just for lack of time, but please go back and visit the different frames and see what your colleagues have come up with in terms of some ideas that you might be able to harvest. All right. So there's a quote here. I'm just going to give you a minute to read it and just reflect. What structures and practices do you think are in place in this student's classroom that would lead to this testimony of ownership of learning? So hold on to your thinking, Stephanie. Thanks for sharing, but hold on. It's okay. Hold on to your thinking for a minute. I'm going to give you some time to go into your grade level again, and you can access those Google Meets through the same note catcher that you all had open earlier. And when you get there, first, find out whose birthday is closest to today, and that will be the group leader. And group leader, if you can kind of divide this time into maybe 2 different parts, just like we did last time. The first part is reflecting, like, as a group, what are some things that must be in place for a student to have said this thing at that school? And so you're going to reflect on that piece and kind of talk through it. And then there's just some unstructured time, y'all. If you want to talk about the content for today, great. If there's something else going on at your school that y'all want to talk about, or something to do with the content and the module you're on, take that time and do whatever you feel is best for that time. So group leader, you are the person whose birthday is closest to today. I'm not talking about the year, just the month and day. All right, any questions before y'all go out to your groups? All right, I need you back here at 5 o'clock, please, 5 o'clock. All right, facilitators, may I have like a yes or something, thumbs up in the chat if y'all are back? Stacy's group, grade 7. Oh no, you're grade 8 these days. Wait, Stacy, what are you teaching right now? You're teaching 8th grade. Yeah. Okay.
8th grade, but the way my principal looked at me the other day when she brought me the intention form, I think I might not be 8th grade next year. We'll see.
Oh, Stacy, your talents can go to any grade level, right? And beyond.
Not 6. I said I will do 7th and 8th. I do not do babies.
All right, y'all, welcome back. Recall that I got some feedback from y'all, and you did mention that you really appreciated some grade level time. There was also some feedback on just wanting a little bit of time for differentiation and choice. So I hope that we were meeting your needs today. But Dina and I of course are open to feedback and want to continue to grow and be everything you need us to be. I'm not going to ask y'all to share out on what y'all talked about right now, but I do hope that you appreciated that time together. I want to dive into our updates and then be able to let y'all head out for the night. So not too much in the March updates. I will say that April will be our last Hall of Fame. So, if you haven't submitted some names, it's now or never, please. We've really enjoyed reading about all great things happening at schools in different ELA classrooms. So please send it out to your department, or if you want to submit some names yourself, that would be great. But again, April will be our last for the school year. Module 4 instructional resources are available. The pre-assessment / formative assessment, the performance task, the scaffolding videos and graphic organizers, those are all there. We're a little bit bottlenecked with the digital slides right now, the digital lessons. We have all of Unit 1 completed, and Dina and I are working on Units 2 and 3 right now. So those will be available as soon as we can get them finished for you. In addition, grade 7, I'm sure you are thrilled to see the Common Lit supplemental resources. These are, again, supplemental, so please do not replace instruction with these. We have observed, and I'm sure you have noticed in Module 4, a lot of those resources are getting to be a little bit outdated. So we just wanted to provide even more to support instruction in that module. So please take a look. We also included the DPI newsletter in our updates. There's some great information there and resources around ensuring students have access to grade level standards. It goes right into, our topic and content for today's meeting. So webinars and recorded webinars for you to visit as well. Finally, Canvas chats. These are short little videos where either teachers or specialists here in central office are talking about Canvas and how you might utilize it. Just know that we are moving towards that being our learning management system in the very near future. So take advantage of these Canvas chats and try to get to know the system as best as possible. And then on the bottom of the slide, I saw that some of you have already completed it. Thank you. There's a survey with just 1 or 2 questions about how your preference for the format of meetings for the next school year. Anything can change in a moment's time. We know that, and we might have to pivot, but we would like your feedback to see, do you want to keep it virtual? Would you like to go back to face-to-face for those of you who were here when we did face-to-face meetings? And then there's just an open-ended question if you have any additional feedback or comments you want to share about that. So if you can please get that completed, that would be great. That's really all I have for the updates. Are there any questions that y'all have for Dina and I? Susie?
Okay, so you want to elaborate? Are we going all Canvas? Are you thinking? I mean, I know that there's been a lot of discussion about that, but I started Canvas at the beginning of the year because I actually liked the platform, but the slide presentations jump around. When kids are on that platform and they're presenting, their slides jump around. Like you can't smoothly scroll through the slides like you can on, sorry, I might have my picture off. Like you can on a Google slide. So I'm just curious because I want to perfect my skill base. I don't want to be opening next year and trying to be catching up. I like to be prepared. So yeah. Is that what you're telling us?
So not for the next school year.
Okay.
But for the following, we will be getting rid of Google Classroom.
Okay.
So that doesn't mean that they won't have access to Google Suite and be able to still have Google Slides if they're presenting outside of the platform. I know when they submit it could be a little wonky, but there's different ways to integrate and a lot more professional learning around some of that, the integration between Google and Canvas. Like they're continuing to improve that and it's getting better and better. So people are advocating for that here in central office to make sure that Canvas has like pretty much all the same features. And if not, how do we get there? So that's not to make you nervous. I just want folks to start, if they haven't been using Canvas, to just watch these videos, play around with the platform a little bit, and just see how they might be able to utilize it in the future.
Thank you.
I
A
see.
lot of awesome stuff about Canvas. So no, I'm not saying it's going to be a problem. Just checking.
Yeah, no, and as soon as that's public knowledge, like everyone who needs to know will know, but it's just, we're moving in that direction. And we've been saying that for a while, like we're moving in that direction, but we really, really are. It was a school-based decision, I think, this year, and it will be a school-based decision again next year. I think the following year, it's no more decision. We're not paying for Google Suite anymore or Google Classroom. So, yeah. Any other questions? All right, well, y'all know where to find us if you do. I just want to acknowledge all the women, especially on this call, or those in our lives who are committed to healing and hope. Happy Women's History Month. Thank you, crew. Dina and I will stay on if y'all have any questions. We appreciate you so much and your energy today. I hope you have a great rest of your week.
Hey,